The power of composure, mastering the art of Stoic resilience. Have you ever found yourself in a moment where someone tested your patience, where you felt the sting of disrespect creeping under your skin? Maybe it was a colleague who talked over you in a meeting, a friend who dismissed your struggles, or a stranger who pushed past you without a second glance. Our natural instinct in these situations is to push back, to snap, to correct, to demand acknowledgement. But what if I told you that true power lies not in reacting, but in choosing not to? This is where Stoicism, an ancient philosophy rooted in self-discipline and inner peace, offers a timeless solution. The Stoics, from Marcus Aurelius to Epictetus, believed that the greatest strength one can cultivate is composure in the face of adversity. Not reacting doesn't mean being weak. It means recognizing that your energy is precious, that not everything deserves a response, and that emotional control is the ultimate form of self-mastery. So, how do we apply this to modern life? How do we maintain our peace when confronted with disrespect? Here are 5 powerful Stoic principles that will help you rise above negativity and reclaim your sense of calm. 1. Detachment. See it as an outside event, not a personal attack. The Stoics remind us that most of what happens around us is external, completely outside our control. When someone disrespects you, it says more about them than it does about you. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Imagine a coworker rudely interrupting you during a discussion. Instead of feeling insulted, take a step back. Observe their behavior as if you were watching a scene in a movie. This small shift in perspective creates distance between you and the emotional charge of the moment. When you stop personalizing others' actions, their words lose their sting. 2. The pause. Master the art of delayed response. Epictetus advised, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." And one of the simplest, yet most powerful tools you can use is the pause. When someone speaks to you disrespectfully, resist the urge to fire back. Instead, take a breath. Give yourself a few seconds of silence before responding, or choose not to respond at all. The pause gives you control over your emotions instead of letting them control you. It allows you to assess, is this even worth my energy? Often, you'll find that most provocations aren't. Think about the last time you saw someone remain completely unbothered by an insult. That level of self-restraint commands respect. People expect reactions, they thrive on them. When you refuse to give them one, you take away their power. 3. The view from above. Perspective is everything. One of the most profound Stoic exercises is called the view from above, a practice that helps you zoom out from your immediate emotions and see the bigger picture. Seneca, another great Stoic thinker, encouraged people to remind themselves of how small their problems truly are in the grand scheme of life. Ask yourself, will this matter a week from now? A month? A year? If I were on my deathbed looking back at my life, would I care about this moment? If I were advising a friend, what would I tell them to do? Most disrespect is fleeting, trivial. Don't let a temporary irritation steal your long-term peace. When you elevate your perspective, petty offenses shrink in importance. 4. Control what you can, release what you can't. At the heart of Stoicism is the dichotomy of control, the idea that there are only 2 things in life. 1. What we can control, our thoughts, reactions, actions. 2. What we can't control, other people's behavior, opinions, and emotions. Marcus Aurelius put it simply, you always have the option of having no opinion. This means that if someone disrespects you, you don't have to label it as bad or let it affect your self-worth. Instead, you can choose to remain indifferent. Their words mean nothing unless you give them meaning. If someone gossips about you, that's on them. If someone tries to undermine you, let them. It doesn't change your skills or your value. If someone insults you, their opinion has no power unless you grant it power. Master this mindset, and you become unshakable. 5. Lead with strength, not ego. Finally, Stoicism isn't about being passive, it's about being strategic. Responding with composure doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. It means choosing your battles wisely. It means recognizing that your dignity is not up for negotiation. When Marcus Aurelius faced criticism, he didn't lash out. He remained steady, knowing that true power lies in self-restraint. When Epictetus was mocked for being a former slave, he didn't let it define him. He rose above it. Ask yourself, is my response fueled by ego, or by wisdom? Am I reacting out of insecurity, or acting with strength? A strong person doesn't need to prove their worth with words. Their actions speak for themselves. The silent stare, a masterclass in control. Picture this: you're sitting in a meeting, ready to contribute your ideas. But every time you open your mouth, a colleague cuts you off, steamrolling through the conversation as if your words don't matter. You try again, maybe with a little more assertion, but they keep going, oblivious or, worse, deliberately dismissive. Frustration bubbles up inside you. Your pulse quickens. Every fiber of your being urges you to interrupt, to reclaim your space, to demand respect. But instead of snapping back, you lean back. Instead of raising your voice, you fall silent. You fold your arms, lock eyes with them, and wait. The room shifts. The once dominant voice begins to falter. Your colleague stumbles over their words, suddenly aware of the tension hanging in the air. The silence grows heavier, almost deafening. It's no longer just a void, it's a mirror, forcing them to confront their own behavior. And then, as if by instinct, they look away. This is the silent stare. It's not about intimidation. It's not about passive aggression. It's about control, controlling yourself, and in doing so, influencing the entire room. Why silence is more powerful than words. In a world that thrives on noise, silence is a disruption. People expect reactions, they crave them. When someone disrespects you, they anticipate a response, whether it's anger, defensiveness, or retaliation. They are playing a game, and the moment you react, you're a participant. But when you refuse to engage, when you meet arrogance with composed stillness, you change the rules entirely. Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic emperor, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." What does this mean in practice? It means that you don't control what others do, you only control how you respond. And the most effective response is often no response at all. Think about the last time someone truly got under your skin. Maybe it was a rude stranger, an overbearing boss, or a friend who betrayed your trust. Your immediate instinct was likely to react, to correct them, to fight for your dignity. But have you ever noticed that the strongest, most self-assured people rarely react emotionally? They don't lash out. They don't defend. They simply observe. That's because they understand a fundamental truth: reaction is weakness, but restraint is power. The psychological impact of silence. Silence is uncomfortable. People fill it with nervous laughter, rambling explanations, or desperate attempts to regain control. When you meet disrespect with silence, you're not just avoiding conflict, you're forcing reflection. A colleague who dominates the conversation isn't expecting to be met with a cold, unwavering gaze. A person who mocks you isn't prepared for the weight of their own words hanging in the empty air. They expect resistance. They expect a fight. When they don't get it, they're left to wrestle with their own discomfort. Psychologists call this the power of nonverbal communication. Your posture, your gaze, your ability to withhold words, these elements speak louder than any argument ever could. A firm stare and a composed silence tell the other person, "I see what you're doing. I'm not impressed. I'm not affected." And that, in itself, is a shift in power. The Stoic way, control the fire within. Epictetus, another great Stoic philosopher, taught that we suffer more from our perception of events than the events themselves. This means that disrespect, interruptions, or arrogance only have power over you if you let them. Consider two possible reactions to an infuriating colleague. 1. You engage. You argue back. Your voice tightens, your emotions take over, and suddenly, the entire meeting has shifted into a battle of egos. Even if you're right, you've lost, because you lost control. 2. You remain silent. You let them stumble over their own arrogance. You show, rather than tell, that you are not someone to be disregarded. And when you finally do speak, every word carries more weight, because it wasn't thrown out carelessly in the heat of emotion. Which person commands more respect? Applying the silent stare in real life. This technique isn't just for boardrooms or office politics. It's a tool for every situation where you encounter disrespect. In personal relationships, if someone is trying to provoke you, don't bite the bait. Let your silence communicate what words never could. In social settings, a condescending remark from a stranger doesn't deserve your energy. Let them drown in their own discomfort. On social media, not every comment needs a response. True confidence is choosing where to place your attention. And most importantly, inwardly. When your own mind starts attacking you with doubts, regrets, or anger, practice silence within yourself. Observe your thoughts without reacting to them. Let them pass, like clouds drifting across the sky. Strength is in stillness. The next time you feel disrespected, ask yourself, do I need to react? Who has more power right now, the person who's emotional or the one who's composed? Is this moment worth my peace? 9 times out of 10, the answer will be no. And in that realization, you unlock the greatest power of all, the power of restraint. Silence as a response, the art of letting words hang. Have you ever found yourself in a conversation where someone makes a passive-aggressive comment, clearly baiting you for a reaction? Maybe it's a coworker who constantly throws subtle jabs at your work, a friend who cloaks criticism in sarcasm, or a family member who knows exactly which buttons to push. In moments like these, the natural instinct is to respond, to correct them, to defend yourself, to prove them wrong. But what if the most powerful response isn't a response at all? The strength in not engaging. There's a profound lesson in the words of the Stoic philosopher Epictetus. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Most of the time, when someone disrespects us, they aren't seeking truth or resolution, they're seeking control. They want to get under our skin, to draw out an emotional response, to make us play their game. The moment you engage, you've already lost. You've given them exactly what they wanted, your energy, your time, and your peace. Now, imagine a different scenario. Someone throws a sarcastic comment your way, expecting you to jump in and defend yourself. But instead of reacting, you simply pause. You meet their gaze. You raise an eyebrow. And then, you say nothing. The silence stretches. And in that silence, something remarkable happens. The weight of their own words settles around them. The very words they meant to provoke you now turn back on them, leaving them to wrestle with their own discomfort. A personal lesson in the power of silence. Years ago, I had a coworker who loved to undermine me. His comments weren't direct insults, he was too clever for that, but they were sharp enough to make an impact. Snide remarks about my ideas, dismissive laughter in meetings, little digs that, on the surface, seemed harmless but carried an undeniable edge. One day, during a discussion, he smirked and said, "Well, that's one way to do it, if you don't mind taking the long road." Everyone in the room turned to me, expecting a response. Maybe they thought I'd defend my approach or throw back a jab of my own. Instead, I did nothing. I simply looked at him, held his gaze for a moment, and let the silence stretch. No retort. No justification. Just stillness. And then, something shifted. He fidgeted. He looked away. And just like that, his confidence cracked. That was the last time he tried to undermine me. Why silence works. When you refuse to engage, you send a powerful message. Your words do not affect me. I do not need to justify myself to you. You are not worth my energy. This does more than just neutralize the attack, it shifts the power dynamic entirely. Instead of scrambling to defend yourself, you remain composed. Instead of getting drawn into their negativity, you stay rooted in your own peace. The Stoics understood this deeply. They knew that power doesn't come from dominating others, it comes from mastering yourself. Silence is not weakness, it's discipline. There's a misconception that staying silent is a sign of weakness, that if you don't respond, you're somehow conceding. But in reality, silence is one of the greatest displays of strength. Think of the most composed, respected leaders throughout history. The ones who commanded attention when they spoke, not because they were the loudest, but because they chose their words wisely. They understood that not every battle is worth fighting, and that sometimes, the most strategic move is to let the other person defeat themselves with their own words. If someone is determined to misunderstand you, no explanation will change their mind. If someone thrives on provoking reactions, engaging only fuels their behavior. By staying silent, you communicate that their words are insignificant. And that, more than any argument, will leave a lasting impact. The psychological effect of letting words hang. Silence makes people uncomfortable. In conversation, we're used to a rhythm, one person speaks, the other responds. When you refuse to engage, you break that rhythm. Psychologists call this the power of nonverbal communication. Your silence forces the other person to reflect, to question, and often, to realize the pettiness of their own words. When someone throws an insult or a passive-aggressive remark, they expect resistance. When they get silence instead, they're left to sit with their own words, exposed in their full insignificance. And sometimes, that's enough to make them stop. How to use silence effectively. Knowing when to speak and when to stay silent is an art. Here's how you can apply this Stoic technique in everyday life. 1. Pause before reacting. The next time someone says something offensive, resist the urge to react immediately. Take a breath. Let the moment sit. You'll be surprised how often a few seconds of silence is enough to shift the energy. 2. Master the nonverbal response, a steady gaze, a slight head tilt, a raised eyebrow. These subtle cues speak volumes. They let the other person know you heard them, but you're not giving them what they want. 3. Let their words hang. Instead of defending yourself, let the remark linger in the air. Often, the person will feel compelled to fill the silence, sometimes by backtracking, sometimes by revealing their true motives. 4. Choose when to engage. Not every battle is worth fighting. Ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Will responding change anything? If the answer is no, let it go. Your silence will say more than words ever could. 5. Protect your peace. At the end of the day, the goal isn't to win conversation, it's to maintain your own peace. If someone's words don't serve you, don't entertain them. Stop explaining yourself, reclaiming your autonomy. Have you ever found yourself justifying a decision to someone, even when you didn't owe them an explanation? Maybe you turned down an opportunity, changed your lifestyle, or simply chose to do something differently than expected. And suddenly, you felt compelled to explain, to make them understand, to seek their approval. But here's the truth, you don't have to. The habit of over-explaining. Many of us fall into the trap of over-explaining. We feel the need to justify our choices to friends, family, coworkers, even strangers. Why? Because deep down, we fear judgment. We want to be understood. We crave validation. But as the Stoic philosopher Seneca reminds us, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Often, our fear of what others might think is far worse than their actual opinions. And even if they do judge us, so what? Their approval doesn't change the reality of our choices. Yet, we waste energy trying to make them see things our way. We craft detailed explanations, we overcompensate, we bend over backward to ensure no one misinterprets us. But in doing so, we weaken our own convictions. A lesson in silence. I remember when I turned down a high-paying job in favor of one that gave me more freedom. A friend was shocked. "Why would you do that?" they asked, their tone laced with disbelief. For a split second, I felt the familiar urge to explain, to list all the reasons why money wasn't my top priority, to describe how I valued time and independence more than a paycheck, to make them understand. But then, I stopped myself. Instead, I simply said, because it's what I chose. No justification. No defense. Just a statement of fact. And you know what happened? The conversation ended there. They blinked, nodded, and moved on. The moment I refused to engage in an unnecessary explanation, I asserted my autonomy. My decision was mine, and it wasn't up for debate. Why we feel the need to justify ourselves. Over-explaining is a learned behavior. From a young age, we're conditioned to believe that our choices must be approved by others. We seek reassurance that we're making the right decisions, as if life were a standardized test with clear answers. But life doesn't work that way. There is no universal, right choice, only the right choice for you. And that's something no one else can determine. When you explain yourself unnecessarily, you subtly send a message. I need your approval. I am unsure of my own decision. Your judgment matters more than my conviction. But when you stand firm without explanation, you communicate something entirely different. I trust myself. I don't seek validation. My decision speaks for itself. The power of owning your choices. There's an undeniable strength in making a decision and letting it stand without further explanation. It shows confidence, self-trust, and clarity of purpose. It tells the world, this is what I chose, and that is enough. This doesn't mean you should be dismissive or rude. It simply means recognizing that you are not obligated to justify yourself to everyone. If a decision aligns with your values and priorities, that alone makes it valid. How to break the habit of over-explaining. If you catch yourself over-explaining, try these simple mindset shifts. 1. Pause before responding. When someone questions your decision, take a breath. Ask yourself, do I really need to explain this? Or am I just reacting out of habit? 2. Use a simple statement. Instead of launching into a detailed justification, try a firm but polite response. Oh, because that's what works for me. Oh, it's just what I prefer. Oh, I've thought about it, and this is what I decided. 3. Embrace the power of silence. Sometimes, the best response is no response at all. Let your decision stand on its own. You don't owe an explanation to anyone who isn't directly affected by it. 4. Remember, not everyone needs to understand, people will always have opinions. That doesn't mean you have to entertain them. If your choice makes sense to you, that's enough. Real-life examples of Stoic confidence. Some of the most composed and respected individuals throughout history have mastered this principle. They make decisions, state them clearly, and move on, without seeking approval or over-explaining. Think about great leaders, thinkers, and innovators. They don't waste time justifying every move they make. Instead, they own their choices and let their actions speak louder than words. Imagine if Steve Jobs had spent hours explaining to people why he believed in the iPhone when others doubted it. Or if Marcus Aurelius had constantly defended his Stoic philosophy to skeptics. Greatness comes from clarity and conviction, not from seeking validation. When you should explain, and when you shouldn't. Of course, there are times when explanations are necessary. If your decision directly impacts someone else, your partner, your team at work, your close friends, it's respectful to communicate your reasoning. Clarity fosters understanding in relationships. But if someone is merely curious, judgmental, or trying to challenge your choices, you don't owe them anything. Ask yourself, does this person truly need an explanation? Am I explaining because it's necessary, or just because I feel pressured to? If it's the latter, stop yourself. Hold your ground. Let your decision stand. Applying Stoic wisdom in everyday life. Living by Stoic principles isn't about reading philosophy books or memorizing quotes, it's about action. It's about integrating wisdom into the moments that challenge us the most, when we feel disrespected, when we're misunderstood, when we face setbacks, or when the world seems determined to provoke a reaction. The Stoics didn't just theorize about life, they lived it with clarity and purpose. They believed that peace isn't found in controlling external events but in mastering our own minds. The good news? You don't need to retreat to a monastery or isolate yourself from society to embody these teachings. You can start right here, right now, in your everyday life. Here's how. 1. Master the silent stare. Disrespect is inevitable. At some point, someone will mock you, talk down to you, or try to belittle your achievements. The usual response? Either fight back with words or shrink into self-doubt. But both of these reactions give power to the person trying to provoke you. Instead, practice the silent stare, a calm, unbothered gaze that speaks volumes without saying a word. Imagine this, you're in a meeting, and a colleague makes a sarcastic remark about your work. Every fiber of your being wants to defend yourself, to set the record straight. But instead, you meet their gaze with complete composure, no anger, no defensiveness, just silence. What happens next? The weight of their own words starts pressing back on them. Without your energy to feed on, their confidence wavers. Silence forces them to sit with their own behavior, to confront the awkwardness they created. Your calmness, your refusal to engage, is your power. 2. Let words hang in the air. Passive-aggressive comments are a trap. They're designed to bait you into conflict while giving the instigator an easy escape. But what if you refuse to play along? When someone says something loaded with veiled hostility, "Wow, must be nice to have such an easy job." You don't have to explain, argue, or prove anything. Just let their words hang in the air. Pause. Say nothing. Let silence do the work. That pause is uncomfortable, but not for you. It forces them to hear what they just said, without your reaction to dilute it. More often than not, they'll shift uncomfortably, backtrack, or change the subject. By refusing to engage, you show that their words carry no weight in your world. 3. Stop explaining yourself. One of the biggest sources of stress in life comes from justifying our decisions to people who have no stake in them. You choose a different career path. But why would you leave a stable job? You decide to stay single. Aren't you worried about being alone? You adopt a minimalist lifestyle. Don't you want nice things? Here's a radical truth: you don't owe anyone an explanation. If your decision aligns with your values and brings you peace, that's all the justification you need. You are not on trial. You don't have to make people understand. A simple, "because it's what I chose," is enough. 4. Detach from external validation. We all want to be liked. It's human nature. But the pursuit of approval is a never-ending cycle that leads to exhaustion. No matter how much you try to please people, there will always be someone who disapproves, misunderstands, or criticizes you. The Stoics remind us, your worth is not determined by how others perceive you. Marcus Aurelius put it best. It never ceases to amaze me, we all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinions than our own. Think about that. You wake up every day in your own mind, your own body. You experience your own struggles, your own victories. Why, then, should the fleeting judgment of another person dictate how you feel about yourself? Detach from the need for approval. Live according to your own standards, not someone else's expectations. 5. Cultivate inner resilience. Life will test you. People will provoke you. Situations will push you to your limits. The question is, will you react impulsively, or will you respond with wisdom? A Stoic doesn't avoid challenges, they embrace them as opportunities to grow. They see conflict as a test of their self-mastery. When someone insults you, practice restraint. When life throws obstacles in your path, practice acceptance. When faced with difficulty, remind yourself that you have faced worse, and you endured. True power is not in controlling others, it's in controlling yourself. The ultimate choice, reaction or response. At the end of the day, you have one choice: will you be controlled by outside forces, or will you control your own mind? Most people go through life reacting, getting angry when insulted, getting defensive when questioned, getting anxious when judged. But the Stoic path is different. It's about responding with clarity, with purpose, with wisdom. Marcus Aurelius said it best. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Let that sink in. You can't stop people from testing you. You can't control what others say or do. But you can control how you respond. And in that response lies all your power. So the next time life challenges you, ask yourself, am I reacting, or am I responding with wisdom? Make the choice that aligns with your highest self. That is the essence of Stoic living.